Welcome to this webinar series of the new wave of AI testing that is running on AI. Today, uh, today the topic that we have is AI-powered transformation in modern software testing. Uh, I am Tushar. I am Tushar, your host today. I am a product manager at BrowserStack, working at different BrowserStack AI agents. And with me, we have today Srinath, who is a senior QA architect and team lead at Konrad Group. He comes with 10 years of experience in QA automation and leadership. He specifically specializes in creating custom automation framework, mentoring teams, driving quality assurance strategies for complex digital projects. So, welcome, Sri.
Thanks, Tushar. Glad to be here.
Yeah, let's get started. So, few housekeeping items. This today's session will be running for 60 minutes. This session will be recorded. For ease of the presentation, and the session will be keeping every other participant on muted. Uh, the recording of this session will be made available for all attendees, and we'll have 10 minutes of dedicated Q&A at the end. So please use Zoom Q&A. If you have any questions throughout the session, put your questions there. We'll address them. Both Sri and me will address those questions towards the end. All right. So agenda for today's session, we are going to get started with a very broad topic where we'll see how AI is reshaping the way we build software. Then we'll also talk about BrowserStack vision and how BrowserStack basically trying to be relevant and help our QAs to make their life easier uh, in the AI wave. The main crux of the matter where she will take over and help us understand the MCP servers and AI and software quality. In that, majorly will focus on how manual testing can be reimagined with MCP and AI together. We'll also talk about accelerating automation testing with MCP and how you personally can be the AI champion within your org and push boundaries with AI in entire testing space. Post that, we'll also talk about briefly on what different BrowserStack AI agents we have in entire automation testing, and then we'll close with Q&A. All right, with further ado, I'll just quickly start with how the entire world is evolving with AI. So basically, I primarily work in AI space at BrowserStack. I build a lot of agents. I am at the forefront of building what the product is in the AI ecosystem. But when I started actually realizing what AI could do, I was mind blown. And majorly because where the world is moving in software is changing, interfaces are becoming agents, and more code is getting written than it has been written before. In next 5 years, you are going to see, since we started writing code, more code than that will be written in next 5 years. So that's where AI is basically driving the entire software boom, right? And why is this happening? Majorly, previously only devs and QAs and technical persons, people used to write code. Now I can write code. Now anybody can write code. All I need to do is go to Claude or Cursor or go to ChatGPT and say, oh, I want to build this site, or go to Lovable and say, I want to build this interface. I want to build a particular site or app, and it is done within minutes. So we are entering a new era where software is going to be AI first. It will be built AI first. It will be tested AI first. And let's look at how it is changing. Majorly, uh, we used to have these tools like app-driven workflows. The entire intention of that is changing basically to goal-driven interactions. When I say that, we used to basically give tools to users. Like take this tool, go to this tool, click some buttons, and this is the workflow, and that's how it is solving your problem. Now that is changing into where instead of interacting and doing the grunt work, all we are doing is basically stating our goals. and AI agents are working in the background and basically figuring out how to do and what to do it. Now the entire manual navigation is just shifting to natural conversations. Instead of clicking those buttons, I'm saying, okay, test that, deploy that, right? We're moving away from entire how we used to interact with products. Right? This is the transition which is going to redefine what the product is. Previously, uh, we used to feel product is in user experience. Now, user experience is going to be just how we interact, and it's going to be in natural language. And majorly, how we are going to build products is going to be in the background. How intelligently these agents are understanding the goal. How intelligently these agents are able to perform the goal that you have stated. So this is so agentic AI is not a feature, it's the new interface altogether and everybody. And when I say everybody, I've seen customers, I've seen workflows getting modified and reinvented with AI. Now with this, I was scared, I was skeptical at first, right? Like what's going to happen to all the devs and all the QAs if AI is going to write the code. But my thought process has evolved as I've been working in this field for a while now. AI is driving the software boom. A lot of software is getting built. And because the user interface is evolving and everybody can code, with the speed, a lot of code is being written and the complexity is rising. And what is going to happen with that? More code means more testing. When we say more testing, specifically, quality teams have this unique opportunity to basically reinvent themselves to be faster, smarter, more effective with AI so that we can be ahead of AI. So that's the unique opportunity we have specifically in software space, right? So, and how do we basically go there? It's majorly we learn about how we can utilize AI, how we can uh, reinvent our day-to-day life. So that is the exact reason why we're having this session. So I'll just launch another like one poll where I'm trying to understand what are those key topics, right? Which you would want to maybe learn more. Now let me take you quickly through how BrowserStack is viewing these entire things, right? So when BrowserStack talks about building AI agents and building AI workflows, here what we are trying to do is exactly same thing that we wanted to do. We are improving coverage and accuracy while boosting the productivity by up to 50%. Why am I saying that? See, BrowserStack's approach to AI is very simple. We are not replacing the humans in the entire workflow. What we are doing, we are putting humans into decision making and more of a strategic role, and we are letting the AI do all the grunt work. So we are putting you into a driving seat and all the grunt work of execution. We are making AI do it, and we are doing this across the entire testing lifecycle, right from test planning, right from requirement analysis, identifying test scenarios, creating test plans, and setting up test environments. That these are the first testing lifecycle where we are building AI agents. Moving on to next one, test creation. We have AI agents writing test cases, maintaining test cases, uh, and entire test management. We are building AI agents in that front. In test execution, we are building AI agents both in manual and automated test execution, rise from test selection uh, to accessibility testing, visual testing, cross-border testing, performance testing. We are building agents in each and every workflow of testing lifecycle, which does the execution part. When I say execution part, you state the goal, you state what you want to do, and the agent will get it done, right? And the next life cycle, once the execution is done, is test validation. We are building agents in test reporting, failure analysis, flaky test management, logging defects. So we are building agents across the life cycle, that is why we are confidently able to say we are going to boost. Once you realize the entire life cycle of what we are building, that is going to boost to 50% productivity because the entire execution load is going to taken off of your plate. Uh, Sorry, few of our AI agents are already live. A lot of you must have already seen this. Test case generator agent, deduplication agent, test management agent, test failure analysis agent, and self-healing agent, and many more which are already live. We have 20 more agents that are already in development. Some of them are beta, some of them are still in cooking phase. and many more. So that is the like extent of what how much we are invested in AI and how we are trying to build the entire workflows around this. So uh, enough of me, Shri. I'll hand it over to you. Please take us through the actual hands-on experience of how you are utilizing AI and how we all can learn from this and basically reinvent both manual and automation testing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tushar. So before I get started, few quick reiterating of this stuff. Please, if you have questions, post them in the chat. We have a dedicated Q&A session at the end for me to answer all of your questions. The other thing with the live hands-on demo portion, as you all know, I don't want to waste time watching AI do things. I'll show that it's kind of doing what I'm telling it to do, but I do have results prepared ahead of time. So I want to walk through the way I got the results that I did, as opposed to the results themselves, because I feel the meat of the crux of this entire thing is a shift in our way of thinking on how we can utilize these tools in order to place ourselves better, and by placing ourselves better, our organization better, and so on and so forth. With that mentioned, let's dive right in. Cool. So the main focus here is MCP servers and AI and software quality. The second part of this, AI, we've all heard of it. MCP servers, it's all the rage right now. All everybody seems to be talking about is MCP this, MCP that. This company has an MCP server, another one is an MCP server. So I want to start off with giving you guys a little bit of context on what exactly is an MCP server. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. So it's a way for agents to connect to external systems and gather data from them, which are not in their own training data set, right? Think of it as like the USB-C port for AI applications, where there's a dedicated standard, there's protocols that govern who can request what data. So by following this open source standard to publish servers, now companies and other organizations and other SaaS products and different distributed systems can decide what they want to expose to agents and what agents can request from them so that they can better do their tasks. So the focus of this presentation is going to be heavily on VS Code and GitHub Copilot, which is the leading agent that everybody's using right now. And we're going to look at some of the popular MCP servers out there. Now, I know that most people are not aware. So if you have a product that you're using in your SDLC, it's got an MCP server for it. Trust me, if it's not official from the company, someone's building it for them. So the most common ones are Atlassian, Jira, Confluence, they're MCP servers for those that help you kind of, once you have them set up, you can kind of query and find details of, Jira tickets or Confluence documentations, and you can give those context and feed those into your agents in Copilot. Azure DevOps, which is kind of the other similar product from Azure. Playwright MCP. Now, Playwright is a very unique proposition here that I want to spend a little bit at the end. I'll tell you why. Postman MCP for me is like super interesting because they give you a way to talk to your MCP servers for your collections. So you can set up API collections and test cases and then expose them through an MCP server via Postman and kind of interact with that using your GitHub Copilot. MCP Toolbox for databases, that's a Google published MCP server that can connect to a variety of databases. It helps you understand data structure, craft queries, and potentially run them as well, which is quite interesting. And BrowserStack MCP server, right? So BrowserStack MCP server allows you to tell your agent to say, hey, I have these tests. Can you actually run it on BrowserStack and let me know the results? And I believe there's also a lot of interesting integrations on the BrowserStack MCP server side to kind of creating and authoring and managing their test management platform, which I find pretty interesting that someone can do that from within VS Code. Now, a lot of this is why do you need all these tools within VS Code, Copilot, and what do you have to do with it is essentially what we've been seeing is the whole shift left paradigm. How can we bring testing as close to the development cycle as possible? Now, Playwright MCP specifically provides browser context. The way that Playwright interacts and observes the browser is what is passed on to Copilot. This gives Copilot and VS Code, like the Copilot agent, two things. First, obvious thing, it can access the browser. The second most obvious or the hidden thing is how is Playwright looking and identifying these elements? What is Playwright doing in order to understand what's being displayed on the page? Now, that information is quite key because it's also passing on locator info. The most boring aspect of what you have to do in test automation and the most irritating aspect is locators, right? They break, they change, you have to inspect them. And if it's not written well, you're in for a nightmare in trying to get that script to work, right? Flaky tests. Now, what I want to focus on today is I'll walk you guys through how we're going to start off with simple VS Code, Playwright MCP, give it basic instructions. I want to cover the topic into 3 different steps or 2 different phases, let's say. Adopting it for accelerating some manual testing or manual validations that you might be doing currently, and how you can scale that into a process. We'll go over both, like getting started to scaling it to a process that can scale. And the second half will go over using Playwright MCP to create automated tests. And then we'll look at what code it generates. And in the later half, we'll cover the generated code. How do we get that to fit into our framework, right? Because we see a lot of content that talks about MCP server, look, it gave me Playwright code, I can run it, I can validate it, but you're sitting there with a huge framework that you spent time building up. It's got its own fixtures, it's got its own helper methods, it's fetching data its own way. Now, how do you integrate Playwright MCP into that framework, right? So that's kind of where we'll go. And the common theme throughout this, which I hope to convey to you all, is the instructions and the prompts that you give to the agents is key. So I have here VS Code with Copilot on my Copilot Claude, which is my preferred agent of choice, to be honest with you guys. And for the demo, we're going to be using BrowserStackDemo.com, which is an e-commerce site. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started saying, I just want to show you guys, I have the Playwright MCP server. I do also have a few others, but the MCP server is there, it's active. And the way I'm going to ask it or engage it is to say, using Playwright, navigate to BrowserStack demo and verify that you can see 25 products displayed. And we'll fire that off. And what Copilot is going to do now is going to say, okay, understood. I'll help you navigate there. I'll open Playwright and see that I can verify these products, right? So now, because it's an agent, what we're seeing is it can actually launch a browser and perform actions that we're asking it to perform. And it also can do validations for us. Quite interesting, right? So it's not just to accelerate your automated scripts, it can actually perform validations. It can say, hey, I launched a site, I was able to see this many number of products. And you can also use the capabilities with an MCP server to say, can you take a screenshot for these pages? Can you check console logs? Can you check network errors? Now, when you think about the capabilities that is there, you can basically write a end-to-end test case, provided you have the data set up and the preconditions are there to add a product to cart and then go through the checkout and then validate that it's able to do everything, right? Now, this is all fine. Now, when you've got basic stuff here, you run the chat, you can say, oh, I validated something. You can follow up on this chat and say, can you add an iPhone 11 to the cart? It'll go and add an iPhone, like let's say we can add an iPhone 12 to the cart, add the iPhone 12 to the cart, and verify that the product has been added to the cart. Cool. Another functional validation. It's gonna do its thing, come back and say, okay, got you. I'll help you add it to the cart. I'll validate. Now, interestingly, it is going to run into a few issues where it'll try and do certain actions. It'll fail, but we'll see it go through the process of trying to recover from that. Now, here's the interesting portion of this is as an individual person doing this to accelerate your testing, it is fine. But now you come into the interesting conundrum of how do you now get more people to do it? How is this going to help others in the team? How is it going to help the rest of the developers? How is it going to help us with the shift left ideology, right? Now, we can see that it added it to the cart. It's going to see that it's added it. Everything looks good. And once that's done, this is great. Now, from an individual experimentation standpoint, making sure you want to do two things at the same time, you can write a test case here, let it execute while you're executing another test case, or you're looking into automated results. This is perfect. It's going to give you screenshots. It can give you stuff. Now, I've prepared a different version of the same thing, which goes to demonstration of scale, right? So how do we get this to the point where we can showcase this to our broader team, to our developers, to other testers in our organization, and how do we scale it? Now, here's a simple, same VS Code. I just have a few folder here. I have the GitHub folder. I have some information here with prompts. The thing here is now the beauty of working with VS Code and the way they've built Copilot for the broader teams is for it to be committed into the repo and for it to be maintained. So now what I've taken is that individual structure that I created for a single test case. I have done few things here, right? So I've created proper test cases with proper objectives, test data. I've added test steps to them. I've given it validation criteria and failure conditions. I've also done something unique, which is a feature inside VS Code and Copilot, which is create a custom chat mode. So part of my chat mode is this is the meat of how I'm telling the agent what it needs to do. I'm not letting it assume anything. I'm giving it very detailed instructions on what it needs to do, what are the tools it has access to, what's the model it should run, what's its purpose and description, what are the core responsibilities. And as part of its responsibilities, what should it do? Hey, take screenshots, descriptive screenshots, do video recordings, monitor network requests, make sure the report gets generated. Now, the beauty of this is, as we can see here, I've already run the prompt here. We can see that it's ran the product search test, validated it. I have a report in the end with screenshots. I also have a detailed test report that came out and said, hey, the vendor filter is working. This is happening after the validation has been done. Now, this is something that's a process where there's a chat mode, where there's an established standard of how to write test cases with producible outcomes that can now be a shared responsibility across the team and the organization. I could just as easily say, hey, developer, here's my folder structure, put it into your VS Code, run it on this chat mode. Please validate these functionalities before you push your code. Or I could say, hey, fellow QAs, let's all collaborate. Let's set up prompts that set the system in different states that we need. And then let's use that to kind of share our testing load. So right after sprint planning, you know what's being developed. You can go and write your flow right within the agent, telling it what it needs to look for, what it needs to validate, and then you can move on to your next task. So when the code is done and the story is ready for QA, you already have something ready to go to execute. And by moving it here and utilizing the rich MCP server ecosystem, you can now connect to Jira, you can connect to Azure DevOps, you can connect to GitHub, you can connect to different places that host your code base, that host requirements, that host your specifications, that host databases, that has API collections. And now you've got a truly powerful ecosystem of information that the agent can look and pull, combined with dedicated instructions on what it needs to do in order to make every single attempt that it does further on repeatable, scalable, and adoptable, right? A quick point of order for me is I was looking at GitHub's official, they have a repo called Awesome Copilot. I have not seen a single instruction or a prompt or a chat mode that's less than 100 lines that they've written. That's the detail that they're going into in order to get the agent to do its work. So this is where the magic lies, right? So the magic isn't in giving it basic English. So we immediately think MCP server, chatting inside to it, GitHub Copilot, to how we interact with ChatGPT. But since our domain is a little bit different, our mindset also needs to be a little bit different in approaching how can we make this scalable within our team, not just, oh, it works for me, it does the testing on my computer. This is great for manual testing, great, we get started, we get using it, we get comfortable for it. What happens when we want to automate a test case, right? How is it going to help us automating test cases? Now, I want to share a framework here that I have. It's a basic framework here. We'll focus on the framework for now. Most of you guys are aware of framework architecture using page object models. We have page objects, same BrowserStack demo website. What we're looking at is we're going to use this as our base, where we have a dedicated framework that we've built. It's got its own fixtures, right? It's got its own test data. We've integrated it with Allure Report. Now, in this framework, if we have to bring in Playwright MCP, how do we go about doing that, right? Let's look at our experience with the manual testing, and we're going to use that to guide what we have to do. Now, a lot of you would have watched YouTube videos on using Playwright MCP. Hey, look, it did it. It gave me a script. And most of the times, the script looks pretty basic, right? It's like what you observe in most blog posts. You find that that does not apply to your situation. And the struggle is there's a gap between what people are showing you and demonstrating to you to how do you get it working within your organization, within your framework. The key to that is exclusively with Playwright MCP and Copilot is how you're structuring your prompts, how detailed you have documentation on, and what you expect from the agent on all being clear. So I'll walk you through a couple of scenarios. The first scenario I want to show you guys is going to be focused on, test automation, just basic test automation. How does that look, right? So when we look at a basic test automation prompt from most people that have demoed Playwright MCP is you guys will see a prompt that looks like this, right? So we're going to focus on the prompt. It's like, it says, oh, you're a Playwright test generator. You're given a scenario, you need to generate a Playwright test. Don't generate it based on the scenario alone. Run the steps one by one using Playwright MCP. After the steps are complete, create a Playwright TypeScript test, save the generated file, execute the test file, and iterate until the test passes. Quite common. I've seen this in a bunch of places, and people think this is going to be, this is it. I don't need more instructions. But what I've come to observe is when we run this set of instructions, while it's pretty good, right? There are a few key things it's kind of missing, right? So it's not looking at something beyond the scenario and generating a Playwright test. It's not looking at anything beyond that. It's very limited in its scope. And it's also quite open-ended, right? So it's not going into, okay, what should it do after that? Are there any other expected outcomes? Is it assuming things, right? So there's a lot of assumptions here. It doesn't know the application under test. It does not know the framework layout, the tools that you're using within the framework. Now, this is added work that the agent, depending on the model that you use, you're going to get varied results. Model A might do something differently. Model B might do something else. Model C might do something else. And trying to get this adopted and scaled within a team is going to be a challenge and a half. Because the minute you have different people experiencing different outcomes, that's where you run into a lot of issues. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to quickly set up our instructions properly. And guys, for working with instructions and chat modes, please refer to the official VS Code documentation. They've got tons of videos, tons of documentation, tons of content that go over, kind of how it works, what you should be doing, the do's and don'ts. And what we're going to do here. So we're going to just once I can see it. Okay, there we go. We're going to close other files, and we're going to look at our test prompt. So the test case is written in a prompt file for better organization. Again, we're going back to what we do as automation engineers and framework developers and working within a framework. We always think about the framework, right? So this is nothing different to another test case, right? So I can store it. I can keep it to show other people on my team who are looking to work on this that, hey, this is how you should go and develop a script, right? So what we're going to do here is we've given it instructions to say, put it under the generated test folder. Since I ran it before, I'm just going to keep that file, but we're going to throw it in here and we'll see that it starts doing stuff, and then we'll go into the code to review what it gave us, right, from before. So all you have to do is take your prompt file, throw it in here, configure your instructions to say, hey, I want you to follow my chat instructions here. And based on that, run this prompt. And the basic thing here, I just want to double check my MCP servers are selected. They are. So please know, guys, when you're in agent mode, you need to be in agent mode for this to work. If you switch to ask mode, it'll start answering your question and not execute as an agent. And since we're telling it within here what tools to use, it's going to pick up that there's MCP server installed and it'll start doing what it's supposed to do. So you can see now we've given it the test prompt, and you see it's reading our chat instructions, right? It's saying, okay, cool, do that. Now, this being agent and us using Claude Sonnet 4, which is good at coding, is reading our page object model. It's reading the home page. It's continue to iterate. And once it understands, it'll start executing, right? So while that's happening in the backend, I've already run this beforehand. And for proof, we can see that this is the first run that I had in terms of context. What we're going to look at is, let's see how this actually worked out in the past when we had it generate the test. So even though it looked at all of these, it did read the code base, it did understand context, it did all of that stuff when it ran before, but you can see the code that it generated, right? So here's a previous run. If I can get the chat window to where I need it to be, drawbacks of dark mode. Anyway, same thing, run this prompt, it used the basic instructions. It did review the code base, it looked at the pages, the page objects, and it navigated to the site, understood the functionality. But then when we take a look at the code, right away, what stands out to you, locators all over the place. It says page.locator. What happened to our page objects, right? We have a framework, it did read the framework, but did not pick up on our page objects that we have. It's not using our existing fixtures. Now, it is using POM fixtures, which is great, but then the page objects are completely missed out on. This is what I call a basic good to start, but this cannot be scalable because all of you guys already are aware of best practices. Our framework needs to be modular, scalable, and based on a pattern here, this does not fit. Now, this means a lot of work for you to go in and refactor. But that's where we kind of bring the same thinking before, right? This is the equivalent of writing your basic test case in the chat context and asking it to go execute something. Non-scalable, works only for you. In practice, not really applicable. Now, to fix this, we need to do two things. Fix our instructions and to give Copilot more context. So the context is here. So the beauty of this is this entire document about what the framework is and AI agent instructions was actually generated by Copilot itself. So there's a functionality in the chat mode where you can say, generate instructions. It'll review your code base. It already knows certain best patterns, and it'll generate like an architecture document outlining where everything is. And like I told you guys before, I haven't seen any instruction set or guidelines that are less than 100 lines. So I'm glad that it gave me more than 100 lines. I know I'm on the right track here. So it's gone over architecture overview, the base class, our page objects, fixtures, our test classes. What are examples for TypeScript that we are using within our framework? Not just basic playwright, but use something that's different and unique in the framework. Development patterns on page object creations, they must extend the base class. They must initialize locators. You should use the inherent methods instead of direct clicks, right? So this is commonplace in most frameworks. how to manage the test data, right? So the framework actually has test data management within it. So it's actually looked into our test data file, looked at all of these, come up with that. It's telling it what's the test structure, what are the basic commands in our package.json file. What frameworks are we using to generate reports? What's our testing conventions for browser configurations? What's the weighting strategies, assertion patterns, data-driven testing, considerations? Now, this is a ton of information and context about what we've built inside our existing framework. Now, with that, we can then tweak this basic instruction into something that works and produces a greater result, where we start off saying, apply it to everything that you're doing, which is the star star. Again, I'll direct you guys to refer to VS Code's documentation on the appropriate wildcards to use. You can have this apply, you can have instructions apply to specific types of files. You can have instructions apply to specific categories, folders, sky's the limit. You can see there's a couple of things that are common. Still, playwright test generator, you are given a scenario, don't generate the test code, run the steps, follow the prompt instructions in detail, and only the prescribed steps without any deviation. Now, this is a little bit different, where I'm telling it, don't go exploring the site. Just do what you're told in the test step and the scope of the test. And once you're done, do a playwright TypeScript test based on message history. And I've added a few things to that prompt saying, use the code base, make the generated test fit into existing patterns, right? So for all the QAs watching, they're like, hey, typo, QA fail. Yeah, that's the hidden canary there for those of you paying attention. Don't use hard-coded constants and reuse page objects where you need to, and create new page object if needed. And then I'm giving it specific instructions to say, save the generated file in a specific directory. Refer to the framework architecture document. After saving the test file, close the browser context. Now, these are instructions backed by an architecture document that contains a ton of information about what is supposedly a basic run-of-the-mill framework with 3-page objects and a playwright test runner with all your report, right? So when we speak about it, we think, okay, it's a simple enough site, it's a test site, something that we can use to play around with and learn new frameworks and learn new methodologies. But when we get into the meat of it, when we think about how much context that we give to AI and the type of result it produces, is drastically different, right? So we're going to go back to it. And again, in the interest of time, we're going to kind of switch context here. We're going to give it the new instructions. And fear not, guys, at the end, I will be giving you guys a link to the GitHub repo. I think we'll forward it to you after the webinar is over, so you'll have all of this context there for you to play around with and kind of see how that applies for yourselves as well. Now, with this new instructions, we can come back here, and I'm going to take you guys through a previous execution of mine that used the better instructions. We'll go over the files that it created, and then you can see how it performed better. Now you can see it's using a reference. Now it's the advanced instructions in play, the same product filtering test prompt. But now it's saying, okay, I'm going to follow the instructions to generate the test. Let me start by understanding the framework structure. Well, Shri, it's the same. It's not different, right? Well, the first thing it did was look at the framework architecture document. Then it's looking for page objects. Then it's looking for the home page class to see if the filtering capabilities exist. This was not done before, right? It says, I can see the home page doesn't have vendor filtering methods. Let me check the existing test files to understand the pattern. Now it's looking at the test specs. It's navigating it's using Playwright MCP to navigate, and you can see the calls that it's making, right? What is it sending into the MCP server, and what's the MCP server responding back? Now it's also translating that for you, and it's going through saying, okay, I can see it, Apple checkbox is enabled, it does that. And then when we come down to the meat of where it's going to do, it's saying, okay, I'll create the TypeScript test like mentioned inside a specific folder, right? It did not find the directory, created the directory. Once it's done, now look here, guys. It's gone into the page object itself, and it's trying to add locators. Once it's added the locators, it's now going to add what I believe will be the ways to interact with it, right? So you can see it's adding the methods that it needs into the page object itself. Once that's done, there's our better created test that it has given to us. What are the few things that we can observe here, right? First off, soft assertions, right? To say that, hey, initial state 25 products displayed. You don't want this to fail as soon as it goes there. Great, awesome. Second thing that brings to mind, hey, it's following our patterns. It's putting everything into the page objects. It's following the existing patterns that the other test cases are doing. It fits within our framework now. We don't have to do a lot of re-architecture, reorganizing, and thinking that this doesn't work. It's at least following conventions. And now I'm going to be perfectly clear. This is for demo purposes. If I were to create instructions, it'll be way more detailed. It'll outline page object model strategies in an instruction. The framework instruction is in a single place. The test architecture is in a single place. And I would rather like to have more comments about the test steps. Now, all of those are instructions and betterments to make this more scalable, more robust. And the more instructions we provide, the more context Copilot and the agents have, and the better the outcome is. So whenever it lacks context or it doesn't understand something, the agent reverts back to its training data. Sometimes if you're not clear, you'll see it start spewing data test IDs that don't even exist in your application, right? Now, by connecting Playwright, by connecting context, and by giving a better test case and prompt, just like we did in the first half of scaling this, when we were looking at the manual execution part, you now have a test that's generated in maybe 30 minutes to an hour that you can just get to debugging now. What I've seen from the Playwright MCP team and the VS Code team is they're now looking at sharing Playwright MCP sessions with the Playwright test recorder and the Playwright inspector, so you can tell it different things, right? So you can say, hey, this is the element that I want. Make the change here in my file. I have a failing test case in a pipeline. It fails at this step in this page due to a locator change. Can you go and fix that and that only? So now for every type of use case, you can come up with what it is that you need to focus on, right? Now, knowing all this, right? How do we take what we've learned and how do you become that champion of someone who's saying, hey, we need to do this because like Tushar mentioned, right? A lot more code is coming in that is AI generated using Copilot, which means developers and development is getting faster. How can testing keep up? Obviously using the same technologies, right? Now, first step, you guys need to know and remove that fear aspect, get comfortable yourselves. Start thinking ahead of how we can use this for the betterment of our organization. Make a strong case using data-driven observations to say, it used to take me a day or two to develop an automated test case, but adopting AI tools like Playwright MCP and GitHub Copilot, I can now cut that time in half. And also, it's not just for automation, right? Like we just saw with the rich ecosystem of MCP servers, it can even be adopted into our existing lifecycle where many of the companies have some form of mixed form where there's some part of manual validation, some automation there. And once you have that strong case, now you come across as the person who has the most context again, right? To drive some of these POCs. So you can get involved, you can speak to people and leadership and people in your companies who are capable of making decisions, and then be that champion, right? I think I've covered everything that I wanted to in my demo. Hope that added value for you guys, and I'm going to pass it back to Tushar now.
Thank you, Sri. I think I haven't seen anything as amazing as what you have shown. I mean, I have been a full stack dev and a tester in my previous life, but this is too good. I mean, with this, a manual tester can complete 100% coverage and make the manual testing also automated. And automation tester can basically push on the most significant problem of coverage, right? So thank you for this. I'll just quickly take over and help you understand. Okay, this is something. Okay, what she showed, you'll be able to do this right from your machine, right? What you have access to with Copilot and everything. BrowserStack has gone a step beyond. and try to solve this problem in a more scalable way, where you have access to BrowserStack, specifically in automation, right? We have these four agents uh, basically revolutionizing how the test automation is done end to end in each testing lifecycle, starting from test authoring. What we just did with Sri is basically authoring tests or creating test cases, right? With BrowserStack's test authoring agent, we basically do more of intent-based testing. When we say, okay, I want to click on a login button, then you actually get help of Playwright, Copilot, or you write it yourself. You create that code, you write that code, and you maintain that code going forward. If your look at has changed, you change that. With BrowserStack test authoring agent, you just mention, okay, this is my intent. Go to this page, click on this button, and you write this intent in your test script. Now, BrowserStack figures it out if you're running this on mobile web, or you're running this on app, or you're running this on like desktop or anywhere, and it figures out exactly what code it needs to basically use to get that intent completed. So this is the first agent that we have, test authoring agent, right in the first step of creating test scripts. Going forward, now let's suppose you have 10,000 test cases in your regression suite, or in your CI/CD suite, which you are going to run after every commit. Now, let's suppose somebody has just done a very small change, which technically should only impact 10 tests. But because all tests are in your suite, you'll be running those 10,000 tests, and you'll be blocking your CI/CD pipeline for 2 hours. What BrowserStack test selection agent is doing is basically figuring out exactly which are impacted tests based on the actual code diffs, and only run those. Meaning, instead of running those 10,000, we'll only run those relevant impacted 10 tests and clear your CI/CD pipeline within 5 minutes. So that saves a tremendous amount of time, uh, and getting faster feedback and focusing more on building the software than waiting for the build to complete. Going beyond, let's suppose now you have run the build. Now it's an execution phase. Now there are some locators that are present in your uh, test script. Let's suppose somebody has just, those locators are brittle. You're using some test IDs which was sign in earlier. Now somebody changed it to login. And that's going to happen a lot with, if you use AI, AI is going to try to modify and maybe optimize stuff, but that is going to break your test script, because that's not how your code is written, right? So BrowserStack self-healing agent is going to get activated at the runtime, and basically going to fix that broken locator, so that you don't, that particular test, which is technically not a failure, it is not supposed to fail, and BrowserStack self-healing agent will make sure that it doesn't fail. So it self-heals automatically, and the brittle locators don't come to your door banging, okay, please fix me. Now, beyond that, if somebody has actually failed, now the nightmare is to figure out what is the root cause, go through all the logs, go through videos, screenshots, and figure out, okay, what is failing, figure out if it is an automation bug, if it is a product bug. If it is a product bug, then go bug devs, okay, fix this, boss, this is not correct. Or if it is an environment issue, then you have to rerun or figure out what is wrong with the environment. BrowserStack's test failure analysis agent basically takes away all that hassle. It does all the log analysis, figures out what is wrong, figures out from your history, from your code, what is actually wrong, and tells you this is the root cause. And these are the next steps. Maybe in the short term, if you want a quick fix, this is the fix. In the long term, if you want to fix it correctly, this is the long term fix. And it also categorizes what type of failure it is, so that once it's failed, here's BrowserStack agent. It says it's an automation bug, then QA can directly work on it and use the next steps to fix it. If it says product bug, you can just simply transfer the entire context to dev, and they can right away get started from the point of how to fix, instead of figuring out what went wrong and figuring out what to fix. So this entire life cycle of automation uh, is what we have an entire automation suite with BrowserStack AI agents. Now, I'll just quickly take you through a few examples. Very simple. Instead of writing the code, you'll just simply say click on sign in button, and BrowserStack will take care uh, in the authoring agent. It will make sure what code to run, what code to run on app, what code to run on web, on mobile web, or anywhere. So you just have to write the intent. in the natural language, and we'll figure out how to run that particular script. Going forward, test execution, test selection agent, we already discussed this. Self-healing agent, all these demo videos are already present on YouTube for the because we are already running a few minutes late. So I'll quickly skip this. But you can go to our YouTube page and basically uh, see these agents in demo, and they can actually see how they are doing. Both of these agents, self-healing agent and test failure analysis agent, are GA. We launched it yesterday, so most of you would have access to it. Go ahead, explore, and uh, figure out if this is actually helping you. And anyway, you can anyway reach out to us if there is any feedback, if there is any feedback that you want to give, and any problem that you would want us to focus on going forward. Now, so all these automation agents and offerings that we have, right? Let's just, let's just quickly run a quick poll to understand if, if any of you are interested. We'll basically put you in touch with the right teams and basically get you started on the POCs on these things to get it started for your org. How to basically, uh, how you can utilize this in your entire automation life cycles. Shri, let's quickly go over the Q&As and let's try to answer from the top.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So first question we have, what is the tech stack of this framework? Missed out on the last few. So can you help us understand the framework that you were using?
Yeah.
Guys, we are anyway going to send you all the artifacts that we have shown today. We'll be sharing all the prompts, all the code that is we have generated and in public repo somewhere, and you'll get access to everything that we are sharing today. Uh, but Shri, please add more color to it.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, Tushar. So it's a basic framework that's using Playwright and Allure reports. Those are the only two things it's using, along with the page object model when it comes to how the framework itself is being built.
Got it. Thank you. Uh, Next question, what application is used again? I believe this is in the context of VS Code and Copilot. That was the application we were using throughout the demo to showcase both manual testing and automation testing.
Correct. And in terms of configurations and how to work it, because I'm going to follow up with the same person's question there, is VS Code has a lot of documentation on how to set up, configure Copilot, how to use all these MCP servers and tools. It's quite a rich documentation ecosystem out there. So please explore those.
Thank you. Will there be a step-by-step guide to how to get started on this? Yes, we already answered this. We are going to give you everything that we have demoed today. So it'll be easy to get started and basically POC internally in your orgs. Will there be a report generated after running the test results? Yes, we saw that in the live demo. There was a report generated both for manual and automation testing, or we can
Yep.
actually give that extensive prompt as well to generate that report, and we can give details in what sort of type we want that report to be. I think that also answers the second question after that. What format the report would be? I think we answered that. Is that MD files generated by Playwright MCP tool or you?
Yes. So the markdown document that it created when we were looking at the manual testing portion, it was actually generated by Copilot. It's not Playwright MCP, but Copilot is using Playwright MCP to access the browser, but Copilot also has access to VS Code. So it can create files, update them for you, and it created a markdown file summarizing what it did.
Got it. Thank you. The next question, will the presenter demonstrate code base in Azure DevOps? I'm afraid I don't understand the question's context, Shri.
I can give you a bit of context. So because they saw the .github folder, maybe they're wondering, oh, is it only going to work if the code base is hosted on GitHub? I can confidently tell you guys that it works even with Azure DevOps because our automation framework is hosted on Azure DevOps.
Perfect. We will be sharing the prompts using PPT. Which applications is it compatible with? Will it function with platforms like Salesforce?
Absolutely, it will, because the AI is trying to look at how it can translate what it sees on the UI, right? So yes, it will be. I would be surprised if it wasn't.
Thank you. What are the steps to get framework architecture, Andy?
That's a great question. So it's very simple in VS Code. Once you open Copilot, once you open the chat, there's a little gear icon. And when you click that gear icon, there's one of the options that says generate instructions. So you want to click that and it takes care of everything else for you. I just renamed what it generated and called it framework architecture.md.
Got it. Next question is about, will we be able to see the recording? Yes, this recording will be shared with you and you'll be able to view it again to go through the content how she has shown in case you need help. Okay. All right. Okay. So BrowserStack MCP is basically just another interface to access BrowserStack services. You'll not be charged additionally for using BrowserStack MCP. It's just another way to interact with BrowserStack tool, right? So very simple. If you have subscription to Live and you want to run a manual testing session, you want to run on, let's say, uh, Chrome, latest Chrome on Windows 11, you just integrate BrowserStack SDK, BrowserStack MCP in your Copilot and say, I want to run that session, and it will start that session. You'll not be charged additionally just for using the interface of MCP. How can MCP servers and AI-driven agents be applied to accessibility testing, specifically to uncover issues that are normally only caught with screen readers, such as missing or incorrect ARIA attributes? Okay, so Shri, do you want to take a crack, or I can
Yeah,
also
I can
answer
take
this?
it. Yeah, I know we both are coming in. Let me put it this way. I'll take the open source portion. You take the browser stack answer to that question. So the open source answer that we did with the player at MCP is it can access the accessibility tree and it can look and validate for specific tags. Now, if you don't give it more detail and context on what it should look for, what are the standards and what's best practices and what you hope to implement, it will not be able to identify those. Coming to a complete like, oh, I want to test this as if a real user with it reading it out loud and have something validate. I believe that aspect of trying to be a real human who needs these accessibility tools and trying to use them and validate from that point, I don't believe um, we're there yet.
Yeah, but at the same time, with MCPs and entire Copilot ecosystem, you can use BrowserStack MCP, which inherently has access to BrowserStack AI agents. And we have AI agents into accessibility space itself, right? From figuring out from a rendered DOM what is the issue of accessibility and basically telling the Copilot, this is what the issue we have found on BrowserStack via MCP so that your Copilot can actually fix those issues in the code directly. So you don't have to go to any other platform anywhere. Use BrowserStack MCP, ask it to scan for accessibility issues. It will scan with BrowserStack's entire context and the rule engine that we have built with our AI agents and get you the actual issues, accessibility issues, so that those can be fixed by Copilot directly. So, I mean, there is so much amazing stuff that BrowserStack has built over past couple of months. Have a look. I mean, you will be amazed to see what all is possible with MCP and BrowserStack. Uh, Next question. Okay. Sri, this question is more about instead of getting started directly by
Mhm.
test scripts and any other thing, I think question is about should we have a solidified strong framework and architecture first before we ask it to randomly generate tests and everything?
So this is a very interesting conundrum. I would say start with a vision of what you want. If so using MCP is going to have clear benefits to you and clear advance, like easy wins, let's say, and using Copilot to accelerate that. Now, if you get into the mindset of the other portions of the code base are standard, like your CI/CD, framework organization, architecture, integrating with third-party tools are some things that we already know. But doing it with an MCP first approach is not something that is, I feel, as tightly coupled. It can be coupled at any point of time. You can start off with having these standards in place and add to these as you're building the framework also, right? So add to the framework architecture, add to the page object recommendation as you're building them out, right? So best practice, my take would be to say, you don't want to absolutely get started and do as you learn is also an approach that works. But if you are doing that without having a clear, concrete idea and a plan of what you want as an outcome, it would not lead to best results, right? So it's open-ended in terms of like best practice wise.
Yeah, I'll just like to add a few things. From my experience as a AIPM at BrowserStack, this is the most faced problem that I'm seeing in the industry altogether. See, AI is beautiful. AI is super intelligent, but it's dumb. You have to. I mean, that's a irony. What I'm saying right now. You have to give a very crystal clear instructions for it to do the right thing that you want it to do, or else it will just hallucinate. It will do what it thinks is the right thing to do, and that most likely will not be the good output. That's what we saw in Sri's first attempt of writing test cases. Right. Got it. And that's about it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining in this session. And thank you, Shri, for this wonderful session. I think I personally haven't attended a session like this. It was very informative. I think a lot is possible with AI, and you just showed a glimpse of it. I believe
Ab-
there is so much we can do with it.
Absolutely, absolutely. For everyone, one last thought is experiment, learn, treat it as just another tool set to add under your already impressive belt. So there's no reason why we should not explore and learn, right? Always be open to learning.
That's pretty much it. Thank you, Shri. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for staying another 10 minutes. I know we were a bit late, but the session was so immersive. Thank you.
Thank you.